as Mohit mentioned, we had a power-packed day yesterday with many insightful panel discussions and keynote addresses. This very illustrious panel today. Thank you for joining us today. Now, I want to take all of you back for a moment. It was November 2022, COP26, Glasgow, Scotland, where our Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a very significant announcement that India aims to be net zero carbon emissions by 2070. And this was even more significant because of the two subsequent announcements. One, that 50% of the India's energy needs will be met by renewable energy sources by 2030, and the goal to scale up the renewable energy generation to 500 gigawatts by the same year. Now, 2 years fast forward, there's been a lot of actions, a lot of developments. We have recently crossed our landmark milestone, 195 gigawatts of renewable energy altogether. I want to understand in this panel that what have we covered so far, what are our big visions, what are our goals, and what will take us to get there. What is required to be done, be it from corporate end, be it from policy making, the government of India, the industry analyst, what all is required to be done to reach there. In your opening remarks, panelists.
Can I make a comment on, because you referred COP22?
I'm coming to you.
I also want to tell you that, in the same COP22, there was a little girl, aged 13, I think, who made a comment saying, you're deciding on the future without the future being in the room, right? So I think it would have been very nice to have some children who are going to be participating in this
I'm hopeful
seminar,
that
so that they learn and become part of the future.
I agree. And I'm hopeful that a lot of young aspiring kids in this space or other than this sector are watching us virtually. Now, I'm coming to all of you. In your opening remarks, panelists, tell us, in last 2 years, for this particular discussion, we have solar and wind to focus on. Now, we understand India has done a great job in solar, but when we talk about wind power, the pace is still slow. And for solar, we are third largest in capacity. And wind, we need to do more. We have a lot more to cover. But tell us, in last 2 years, what are the developments that you have seen? And also point out some of the major contributors that have added to this growth. Can we start with the lady on the panel, Chhavi?
Thank you. So I think I'll talk from perspective of my company and what the changes that we are seeing and what are the few challenges which we'll come to later. At the onset, what I believe is that there have been a lot of policy support, but still the renewable remains a state subject. So while on an overall basis, we have seen a lot of allocation, a lot of talks about government supporting the sectors at the center level. But the moment we move to states, because we have operations pan-India, we find a lot of divergence. So probably in one state, you can go up to 80-85% renewable because it also brings a lot of cost advantage. Maybe in some other state, because of the policies, the implementation of renewable is not that lucrative, despite it bringing cost advantage if government policies are supported. That is on an overall front. The second also I wanted to talk about on solar front. There is PM Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, which is rooftop solar installations, which is also one of the very interesting project, and we as a company are supplying solar rooftop solutions for that. So that is about 75,000 crore of outlay for about talking about implementation of 40 gigawatt of solar rooftops by 2027. So that is another interesting policy support which is being given by the government, because this is, here you are asking the consumers, which is the residents, which is the people, to actually adopt renewable. Secondly, coming on to, if I talk about my company, we have we contribute to renewable in three manner. One is obviously installations of renewable at our project site. Nearly 20% of our power generation is renewable. We aspire to take it to 30% by 2030. As the second is that because we are into power storage, so we also provide solutions for solar energy storage. Uh, then we also contribute to battery energy storage solutions, which is microgrid applications for storing energy because of demand supply gap. And fourth is the solar rooftop solutions. So this is from a company's perspective that on solar we have a lot of opportunities. On the wind also we do supply for power storage, but that's where it ends. So that's I want to contribute on my opening.
Good to know.
remark
That is something that you are doing on your front. Would Somesh, would you like to give us a macro picture of what India has achieved so far in last 2 years? What are some of the big developments that you have seen in this space?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So I think in the last couple of years, there have been significant work that has been done in the renewable space, solar and wind in particular, and solar mostly. I think if we were to look at breaking it from a demand or a supply perspective, so if you look at demand, we've seen large scale ground mounted solar projects coming up. The SECI, which is the central PSU, which actually runs out tenders for renewable plants, and also the similar, counterpart state agencies. They've been running out bids for attracting, solar and wind plants on a large scale basis. And now, the bids are also being invited for a hybrid, solar wind as well as battery combined. So we've seen, significant demand which is being created through that. We've also seen various policies and measures which have come in, like, enabling open access. You can, particularly the CNI consumers can buy power from any source, not just relying on the DISCOM or the incumbent DISCOM. So again, creating demand for renewable energy. Also, we've seen enabling policies on, as was mentioned, on solar rooftop. We as a consulting organization have worked with about 20 states in the country for making sure they have the right ecosystem for having rooftop solar, for instance, and also for this PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. So again, a very catalytic for enabling renewable energy. Again, along with that, now we also see green hydrogen, which is coming up. So which is hydrogen created through the use of renewable energy. So again, impetus for demand of renewable energy. So there are several mechanisms, policies which have been put in place to actually enable demand creation for renewable energy. Similarly, on the supply side, I think we see a lot of major corporates which are come in, which are actually, taken up the responsibility for ensuring that we have the right quantum of solar, modules and wind turbines, etc., which are available in the country. Even on the solar rooftop market, we've seen a large number of players who are coming, who are supplying. On the ministry side, we've seen the ALMM, which has been prescribed, and to which ministry is going on adding more and more players for enabling supply. So again, on the supply side as well, we are seeing a large number of initiatives that have been taken up. The only thing which I would like to close is that, right now our capacity addition per year is about 15 gigawatts or so. But, we are at about 200 gigawatts, and we have to, add about 300 gigawatts more in the next 6 years. So we have to add about 50 gigawatts a year, which is almost 3 times of what we've been doing right now. So that is ambitious. That gives us opportunity also, but that is something that needs to be done. So we need to see how we can fast track almost 3 times of what we've been doing right now. So that is something that is on cards for us.
That's correct. You rightly mentioned about solar, that we have seen great developments in solar. We are around 95 gigawatts now in generation, and a little above 100 in capacity. Now, I'll come back to you when we talk about wind at that front. What is actually hindering the growth? Now, Sindhu, if you can share your opening remarks and tell us in your view, what are some of the major developments that you have seen in the last 2 years? How are you contributing to it?
Sure. So we are from the data center industry. We have India's largest network of data centers in India. In last 2 to 3 years, we have seen considerable, efforts which state government as well as central government has put in to bring new regulations to push consumers like us, CNI consumers like us, to adopt RE. Especially if we'll talk about CNI consumers, I believe we have much clear visibility with respect to regulations now. We have much more options in place to source power. You can now have intrastate. You can also source it from interstate. You now have battery storage option also available. Rooftop is something anyways we have in place either in the capex or an opex model. So now from the regulatory front, I believe last 2 to 3 years, it's a great push from the government side. Still, there are a few states who are yet to adopt the RE transition piece with respect to the open access adoption. But we still believe that with this move, we'll find all these policies in the states where we don't have right now. This is from the regulatory side. For a consumer like us, we are serving all global clients. We are also serving our investors. And for us, energy transition is one of the major agenda items. If you'll talk about our organization, we have a net zero target of 2031. Currently, we are consuming around 40 odd percentage, replacement through RE for our enterprise and hyperscale campuses. In last 5 years, we have signed, I believe, more than 15 to 16 contracts. We are not just signing the PPAs or a bilateral contract. We are a part of all these companies, actually putting the capital in the companies. Now we are moving towards the ISTS, transitions, where we really want to have one plant and the supplying across all the facilities which we have in various states. So this is how we are moving. With respect to I believe, if you would have asked this question a few years back, we were not having the policies in place, but now we have the policies. Considerable amount of push by the central government to all state governments for the adoption of all new policies, we talk about green energy open access policy or any rooftop policy. So it's a good move.
One thing is clear, that India is on the right track, and corporates seem to be very committed and dedicated to what we aim to achieve. Now tell me, Ravindra, in last 2 years, how have you contributed, and also how have you seen the space evolve in the last 2 years?
Yeah. So this solar and wind actually generates during, of course, the solar generates during daytime, and wind, there are high wind months and low wind months. So basically, these are not actually matching to the demand. So the generation curve is not exactly matching with the demand curve. So to your question, so the ISTS, where actually the wind and solar hybrid model is going to be a solution for this matching the round the clock generation on the demand side. Like the solar generates during the daytime and the wind mostly during night time and high wind months time. So combining these two, actually we are able to generate uniformly round the clock about 70 to 80%. With that, actually, that is the biggest change in the last 2 years, which is going to change the entire renewable game. Like, so we have signed for almost about 150 million units already we have signed for the ISTS transaction, and another 200 million units we are about to sign. So this is going to meet almost 50% of our total global consumption. So with this ISTS, and the other thing is, so to meet our COP26, whatever the goal India we have taken to meet this 500 gigawatt capacity, basically the solar is going to generate during the daytime between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. whatever it is. During that time, we have to actually see that the demand management. So most of the utilities, they have not actually coming up with the incentivized tariff during this peak solar generation time. If they make the availability based tariff kind of structure where actually the solar generation is more. That time if they give incentives for the users, so that many of the industries actually will not be having the round the clock loads. So they will be focusing their operations only during the generation period, and most of the load, I mean when the more and more solar installations happens, so that load can be handled by these things. So that is one thing we have to focus on.
This is one mostly discussed and talked about challenge, the challenge of intermittency. And you're correct that we're seeing the development of blend energy generation, solar plus wind, in order to get the round the clock power when we talk about the demand and supply. I'm coming to you, Paneesh, your opening comments. Now, as Somesh rightly mentioned, we just have 6 years. We are sitting in 2024, 3 months left. We are expected to add roughly around 300 gigawatts. Now, this is the ambitious target. India is also required to scale up the capacity per year addition, but it is required to also maintain its economic status of developing country. This is a dilemma. Now, tell us, are we really on the right track when we see our growth in renewable energy space?
I think so. If you see the budgets being allocated for renewable energy, they are humongous. There is tremendous motivation and support given by the government to organizations who are capable of producing renewable energy, and encouraging them to set up huge plants to do that. Third is, I think we, with all the rules, regulations that have come in for organizations like us to adopt renewable energy, has become a norm, and we are reporting that as part of our annual reporting and integrated reports. So I think to that extent they are, but also bear in mind that the infrastructure is not fully there, and it may not be 2030, but surely sometime later it shall happen. We ourselves as an IT services company have taken a target of using 80% of our energy consumption through renewable energy. The issue is that wherever we are, not everywhere we have our own facility, so we have to depend on the landlords to provide us renewable energy, and sometimes it's not possible. That being that, we are trying to renew our contracts and put that as a condition whenever we are renewing or we are changing our premise itself. So to that extent, organizations like us are committed to it. The other thing is there are many states yet to adopt renewable energy. There are many states who have probably adopted but not in full shape and form. The intermittency is a huge issue also for organizations to be able to work on renewable energy. But I guess, organizations like Exide, you don't do help us, because we have a storage capability. We store energy when it's available, and we use it when the nature doesn't give us the energy. I think the also, touching on solar and wind, wind was the first to come before solar came as a technology. And unfortunately, I think it came a little before time, before people could even realize that, that could be used as an energy. And the investments were so huge and the adoption was so late that, those who invested early probably went a little bust on that. And I guess, therefore, we talk more of solar and less of wind, but I think, both are a huge source. And one other source which I believe is neglected is water. And we should start using that hugely too as a source of energy.
Good to know. Now you talked about the corpus that has been aligned with the renewable energy generation. Recently, there was a report that says India has secured around $385 billion for renewable energy generation. I'm coming to you, Somesh. There was a recent report that says that we are a little short on our 2022 target. I mean, our goals are ambitious, that you rightly said. Per year capacity addition, we need to look at that. And also, when we talk about wind, we are a little lagging behind. What is required to be done? and tell us what is actually hindering. What are some of the challenges that we are facing? He talked about infra. A lot of corporates, from when we talk about corporates front, they face a lot of challenge on the cost front. Tell us what are some of the major challenges India as a nation is facing, and also would you also agree that we would need more time than 2030 to achieve this goal?
Yeah, well, I would not like to comment on whether we'll need more time or not, but I'm sure things will fall in place and we will achieve our
Hopefully,
targets.
hopefully.
That's how our country operates. Some jugaad method works here. So I'm very hopeful that we will meet our targets of 500
Me too.
gigawatts by 2030. And I think a lot, as I said earlier, and as everybody has been saying, a lot has been done in terms of policy, enabling framework, ecosystem creation, etc. There have been some challenges. Like I think all my co-panelists here are from corporates, from IT companies, and everybody is saying that they have the ambition or target of buying almost 80 to 100% of their electricity from renewable sources. But I think there are challenges in this. Even as I see the current environment, while the policy enables it, but practically there are challenges. There are challenges from the utility side for actually granting open access. Sometimes the capacity is not there. Sometimes artificial barriers are put. So I think that needs to be completely removed. Also, the cost aspect. Sometimes the costs, including the cross subsidy surcharges, etc., etc., it becomes prohibitive for industries to actually procure power from open access sources. So I think those needs to be streamlined. Also, in terms of the supply side, as I said, we have different modules. If you look at the solar, you have ground-mounted solar. You have solar parks. In India, we had a lot of solar parks which were announced. Almost 39 gigawatts of solar parks have been sanctioned. So I think they need to be enabled. I think another thing which is very important is from Exide, we need to integrate battery storage with our renewable sources. I mean,
That
it's a
is one
very,
big
very
opportunity.
key
Yes.
requirement for round the clock power, for enabling or meeting the intermittency of renewables. So, whether it is a lithium-ion battery or it is pump storage or whichever way of storing, but we need to store and put in more in that. We possibly also need to have more concepts like RE cities, solar cities, which are required to be put in. Also, if you look at wind power in particular, most of the power, most of the capacity that has come up till now in India is less than 1 megawatt each individual site. So now, yes, there have been significant time, particularly in states like Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, etc., where these capacities are reaching their end of life. So we need to look at repowering these sites in a big way, and that's where the issue of PPAs, the issue of land, etc., needs to be actually dealt with. So repowering this capacity with significantly larger capacities can really augment the wind capacity in the country. What has happened is that solar tariffs have significantly come down because of economies of scale, because of what we're doing, but the wind has still remained in the same bracket. So that cost also needs to come down, so which can happen through repowering, etc. So I think these are some of the things that need to be done.
Very well explained, Somesh. I'm coming to you, Chhavi. Would you like to add to it and explain us what's happening on that front? The battery storage, we need round-the-clock power when we look at demand. How are you contributing? What are you doing on that front?
So yes, this is a big issue, which is energy storage, because that is the only thing which will differentiate or increase the acceptance of renewable in India at a wider scale. So currently what we are doing is that we are also working towards providing large storage solutions, because this will not, when you talk about storage solutions at the grid, then it will not be small storage solutions. It will be very, very large storage solutions. Currently, there are all the state governments are providing, are asking for storage solution for microgrids. So where you have say a solar park, there where you have say a solar park, there you will have a small grid, microgrid, and there we are providing solutions for storage, energy storage. But if you're talking about at the national grid level, there the scheme which is battery energy storage solutions, it's yet to take off. So there was something announced in terms of PLI incentive scheme for battery energy storage solutions for companies who want to come and set up. But certain progress needs to be made. Currently, by government, large energy battery energy storage solution projects have not been announced for us to supply and provide for those kind of storage solutions. So, what is the need is that most of the state governments currently are cognizant of it. They are doing it at specific renewable project locations, which is more a microgrid kind of a situation. But at a national grid level, where you want to transfer large renewable power to the grid and use it when it is required, a large battery energy storage applications will require a large government push. Those tenders for now have not yet been awarded.
One thing that is a big happy change is whether you look at from policy makers, you look at government of India, you look at corporates, industry experts, and everybody is very gung-ho about our vision, the goals, and the progress of this sector. Now, I'm coming to you. Tell us, what are some of the challenges that you're facing when you look at scaling up your capacity? And also talk about what are some of the challenges that you face when you deal with sourcing renewable energy for your projects, or how are you dealing with this? Share any example or your experience. How has that been with you?
So one of the major, so we started with the pure vanilla project where we have signed solar PPAs. Over the time, we have realized, okay, we need solar plus wind to have maximum replacement. We added solar, wind to have around 75-80% replacement. Now, since we have the ISTS option in place, right, and for the consumer like us having the RTC load, round the clock load, we'd like to have around 90-95% replacement, which is only possible when you add battery storage to the wind along with your ISTS supply. So what we are doing now, we are looking for partners who will help us out with wind plus battery storage to give me supply during the peak hours, where, you know, for the projects, for the capacity which we have not contracted under the intra-state supply. So it's like, so we have signed around 15 odd contracts, and from all these contracts, I'm getting 70-75% replacement. And each of the state is restricting ourselves because of this TOD banking, right? So we wanted to have a project. We'll start with a pilot one, but we are in discussion with various developers in the market to have solar, wind plus battery or wind plus battery storage so that I'll be able to get supply in those 3-4 hours. So this is something which is really fascinating, and there are a few companies who are already started working on this. Because pure vanilla solar wind is driven. If still there are corporates who are not buying solar wind. I don't know what sort of regulation they are looking for. But for the maximum replacement, to reach up to 90-95%, you need all these permutation combinations.
Good to know. Now, Ravindra, you talked about intermittency. Now we know that renewable energy generation depends on climate. We're seeing extreme behavior of climate. We're seeing early winters. We've seen extreme temperature rates when we were in summer, June, July. How are you looking at it? Now you've put forth one solution to it, that we're looking at blend energy generation. What are talk about some of the challenges as well as some of the solutions that you're looking at?
See, anyhow, these variabilities we cannot change from the nature. Actually, whatever it is during the summer, actually from Jan to May, the generation almost 20% more with the solar panels, and again from the June to December it gets dropped. So the only solution is like the battery storage solution or the pumped storage solution. So as our co-panel members mentioned about, so the government have to look at incentivizing. Now actually the parity has not come. See, suppose if you go for the storage solution through battery, almost the per unit cost is going up to 14-15 rupees also. So which is not a viable scenario. So the government has to incentivize that and then encourage that. Initially, suppose if you take during 2013-14 and all, the solar power cost was about 8 to 9 rupees. So nobody was buying. So they have facilitated policies and then incentives, all those were given. And then in the recent 4-5 years back, actually, it has taken a leap. Same way, the storage is one of the biggest advantage for actually increasing and meeting our COP26 goal also. So for that, government has to look at. And the other biggest challenge is, if you see one side, the ISTS power or the solar power, it is coming down. Actually, per unit rate generation, it is almost 2.5, 3 rupees and 3.5 rupees at the generation side. And at the landed side, we are able to get even at 4 rupees, 4.5 rupees. The other side, the discoms, if you see any state discom utilities rates, is about 8 rupees, 10 rupees and all. So the government policies, central government is making policies so to give open access approvals, deemed approvals, all those things are there in place. But because of this price difference, utilities are actually not able to survive. In case if all the industries and other things going up with these renewables, so their revenues will come down, and obviously they will tend to restrict that approvals and all those things. That is one point actually where government, central government also has to realize and then do something actually to provide any funding to the state utilities or to make it something. Otherwise, this will continue. This will continue. If you see in the last 4-5 years also, we are not able to get much of the approvals in many of the states. And even in ISTS also, first we have to get the state NOC, state utility approval, and then we have to get from the central utility approvals. States obviously are holding it and then delaying. And with the recent green energy open access policy, some states they are now liberalizing, but still there is a lot of things to be done on that front.
Very well explained. Thank you so much for your kind gesture. Two of our panelists struggled opening the bottle, but yes. We have 8 minutes left. Two to each of you. He widely explained what is expected to be done from policymakers, from Government of India. Now tell us in your closing remarks, what are your expectations from Government of India, from policymakers? It cannot be a straight demand you're putting forward, but tell us what is required to be done to get there, to complete our track or to fuel our growth trajectory. Tell us what is required to be done. What is your demand or expectation, Paneesh?
So one is, I think, the uniform adoption of the policy, transparency in it, and a very clear definition. Pricing is a huge deal because, we are all for-profit organizations. And while sustainability is important, at the same time, the investor expectation is also very important.
100%.
Yeah, then, well, those are the main things I believe, and bring in rules and regulations for all the new construction happening, so that they have their own renewable energy capacity and infra. I think very quickly, land adoption could be a huge problem for the government because or individuals, because that's where probably you need to set in your solar farms. That's where you need to set in your windmills. I guess help in that very quickly, so that becomes the only source of energy in the future. And I believe that we are a very, very gifted country compared to many other countries in the world, which has got abundant sun and abundance wind too, and abundance water. If we can use that constructively, nicely, we could be a great country in terms of renewable energy.
Good to know, Paneesh. Thank you for drawing a big picture. But Chhavi, can you give us a one specific, or let's say 3 specific actionable suggestions that you would like to see the growth there?
So I think uniformity in policies across states for renewable energy. That's for adoption of renewable energy. Second is financing. Cost of solar installation, as rightly said, at the end of the year, at the end we all are profit organizations. We all have net zero targets, which are either before the Government of India target or in line with that. So there is huge opportunity for, so, and 100% RE is a way to achieve that target. So there is large opportunity there. So cost of, if you have to promote wind, then financing, and it has to be viable for the owner too, even for the company which is setting up the wind project, and also for the company which is buying the wind project, as we have seen in solar. So financing and making project viable is the second thing. And third thing that I would say is that we need to have policies in place for having demand supply gap sorted in terms of renewable energy storage.
Good to know. These are something that everybody on this panel would not disagree with. So this is something similar. I will come to you, Somesh, later, last in the panel. I'm saving it for the last and expecting some specific inputs from you. Sindhu, tell us in your closing remarks, what are you expecting? At what front you are expecting growth, and what are your demands?
So with the new ISTS rules, and we are going to adopt new ISTS plan, we are contracting for the new ISTS plan. We don't want any surprises from the state government. Likewise, few days back, Tamil Nadu has come up with a policy saying that if you are setting up here, you need to pay 55 lakh rupees per megawatt. There are developers investing huge amount of money there, setting up big ISTS plants. Think about that. There are only limited PGCL substations across India. That too, timelines varying from, they are coming up in 2026, 27, 28. So we don't want any new regulation. If you really want to just put it right now. Just come up with your policies in next few months. you shall not be. It's not a way that you will come up with a policy when the half plant is commissioned. So this is the only ask which I have.
Good to know. Ravindra, you would like to add to this? What is your ask when we talk about our next phase of growth in this sector?
Yeah, so the same thing. So during 2016-17, we have set up a 15 megawatt solar power plant through our own captive solar power plant with a joint venture. So after setting up, we need to get a long-term open access approval. So actually, we did not get it for 2.5 years. So the 2.5 years actually, the plant was not getting generated any revenue. So that is the kind of things were there. And even now we have signed for ISTS. So we just applied, and in AP we got the approval, and in other state actually we are yet to get that. So there should not be any surprises. But still, as a corporate, we have again RE100 and carbon neutrality goal by 2030. For FY24, actually we have reached almost 56% renewable power across our global consumption. So anyhow, we are actually going towards the goal. We will not expect any surprises from the policymakers of the government. That's all.
Unlike me, they're not into surprises. They're not expecting any surprises. So, Mish, I'm coming to you. I mentioned this earlier also. I want your inputs on this as well. The goal is ambitious. Now, India is also required to maintain its economic status as a developing country. In your view, how can this growth pace be just? And in your second part of your response, do tell us what is required to be done. What are your expectations?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things that need to be done, and starting with energy storage, as was mentioned, that's absolutely key. We need to have mega tenders. We need to have much more emphasis being put on energy storage by the government. So that has to come both at the central level and at the state level. Right now we are seeing only distributed level energy storage happening, but not at a grid scale. So that is absolutely one key requirement. The second is that we have looked at the traditional forms of solar. We've looked at ground-mounted solar projects. We've looked at onshore wind capacities, but now we need to look at more newer technologies. Whether those are offshore wind, offshore floating solar, whether that is more of say BIPV, buildings integrated PV, or newer forms of technology, agrivoltaics. fuel cell. Yeah. So all these things now need to be looked at, and enabling policies for each of these need to come in, so that we can harness capacities in these areas. The third thing which is very important is the mindset change, I would say, which is also your question about what the country needs to do. So it's not just about government. We saw the utilities when the rooftop solar started coming in. The utilities saw it as a threat. They thought that my consumers will go away. My CNI consumers will go away. The lucrative consumers will go away. But that is not something that you can stop. That will happen. Similarly, in terms of open access, now all consumers, all organizations are announcing their net zero plans, and they are inevitably going to be buying directly from renewable suppliers, bypassing the grid. So that is not something that grid can stop again. But right now we see artificial barriers which are put in by the utilities to sort of stop this as long as possible. So I think that mindset change needs to happen. The utilities need to become a part of it, need to facilitate this journey, and also see how they can actually play a role in this. Like for instance, some utilities actually have started supplying green power. So they charge a little bit extra, but they supply green power. So that in that case, the consumers do not need to move away. But that's only very sporadic in very few states. But that needs to be adopted. So somehow the utilities need to become a part of the system of the game and not just try to stop this. So I think these are a few things that are important in my view. Yeah. So now, for instance, the tiles. Now, what they're saying that instead of panels, you have tiles, so you can put on the facade of the building itself. So yeah, those are all coming in. So those are the newer technologies that need to be adopted. Yes. I mean, they can be in surplus also. I mean, depends on how much
See,
electricity is required.
Again, it is a cost versus payback. See, whenever there is a sunlight falling on that, only that time it generates. So the initial investment, see, traditional, no, not storage. The traditional solar panels almost gives about 20% generation, 20% PLF. Whereas when you put these on the facade or whatever it is, whenever there is a sunlight falling, that time only it generates. The remaining time it will not generate. Obviously, the payback, whatever the return on the investment, people will see that will be. Yeah, even if it becomes like a traditional solar module, it cannot generate as like a traditional module which is mounted on a north to south kind of thing. So it will not generate. So of course, no cost. Yeah, if it becomes lower, then people can afford to install.
We are very hopeful to see the regulations and favorable regulations, if I may say. But one thing is confirmed, that exciting times ahead, and I am excited, looking forward to it. Thank you so much, panelists, for sharing these insights with us. This has been a very insightful panel discussion. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you so much, audience. Back to you, Aditya. Yes, please, a louder one.